Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and so many people have asked me questions because of the recent talks about athletes and things of, well, how do these athletes get through random drug testing? How do college level athletes even get through random drug testing? We know that from talks from Victor Conte and other people that there are plenty of designer drugs out there that people can use, but obviously only most professional athletes can afford this sort of thing. So how are other people getting through random testing? And I want to state up front, just as a disclaimer, this video is only for educational purposes. I do not advocate, I do not endorse any illegal activity. I do not advocate or endorse people cheat at sports. I want to make that clear. This is absolutely not intended as a how-to guide. In fact, following this as a how-to guide in some countries could get you thrown in jail if you got caught. If you are a competing athlete, you could find yourself reprimanded or even banned from your sport. So I don't want people to think that I'm telling you how to do this, but this is an explanation to show people that people like Victor Conte are right, that drug testing in sports is nothing more than an IQ test. It doesn't work. It's a waste of time. There's almost no point in doing it because all it does is test to see if your athletes and their coaches are intelligent or not whether they're ethical or not. And so basically people with less money or people who aren't as smart get screwed over in sports, and the intelligent ones can just cheat and just keep passing. And so let me give you guys an example. Let's say that there are a college level off-season athlete who is really worried about drug testing. He knows that he is going to get tested at training camp, not just randomly, but he knows he's going to be singled out. Let's just assume this athlete knows that he's suspected of cheating. So he is going to be probably urine and blood tested at least once every week during training camp. Now, how does this athlete go about continuing to use the most effective drugs that he has available, say a football player, rugby player, baseball player, something like that? What would he do if he hypothetically knew this is going to happen? Well, here's a hypothetical example of what many of them will do. They will start with a testosterone suspension base. If they're not worried about being tested at 2 or 3 in the morning, if they know that they're not at that extreme of a level yet to where they're going to start waking them, show up at their front door, knock on it at 2 or 3 in the morning and demand a blood test at 3 a.m. He is probably going to do something like 50 milligrams of test suspension before bed at around 10, 11 o'clock at night. He's probably, very possibly, going to do human growth hormone and whatever he can afford, probably somewhere in the 2 to 8 unit range per day. If he can afford it, it's going to be FDA grade. And very possibly some IGF-1 just to further speed up recovery. The IGF-1 is probably only detectable for a couple hours. Now, the bleed off time on the HGH is generally going to be around the 8-hour range, and then the test suspension, with that big of a dose, he could be popped as far as 12 hours in the future. So if he's doing it at 10 o'clock at night, he could be suspect coming up around somewhere between 8 to 10 a.m. However, there are ways that he can get around that, which he will probably do, which we'll cover in the morning. Now, if this athlete knows he is possibly going to be popped at 2 or 3 a.m., they're going to wake him up because he's already passed several tests and they're still hot on his heels. Someone has it out for him. He's probably not going to do the full 50 milligrams of test suspension. He's going to cut it down to about 25. And he is probably, when he pens it, because he knows generally if they want to really catch someone, they're going to hit you at 2 or 3 a.m. They're not going to come hit you at 11 o'clock right after you pen it. They're going to hit them at 2 or 3 a.m. So what he'll do also, that'll give him enough time for it to bleed down a little. He'll probably also hit about 3 milligrams of epitestosterone. The reason that this athlete would do the epitestosterone is going to be that when they pop him at 3 a.m., his testosterone levels from the 25 milligrams of suspension will probably have hit the top end. It will have bled down to the maximum amount that someone with really elite genetics would produce naturally. It's going to put him down around 1,000 nanograms per deciliter by around 3 a.m. The 3 milligrams of epitestosterone will have bled down to put him down in the 200 nanograms per deciliter range. That's important because his natural production of everything has been suppressed, so he needs that epitestosterone in there to beat the T to E ratio test on the blood work. Now at this point he's completely clear for urine because there's nothing in here with metabolites, but blood work is an issue. And then what he would also probably do, if he's worried about being hit on the blood test, he's probably only going to use 2 to 3 units of growth hormone, so that by the time 3 a.m. rolls around, you'll have a bleed down. Now, the modern testing for HGH that they have got working requires blood tests, but it requires a couple different blood tests, and then they compare how much it bleeds down over that time. So if he limits himself to 2 to 3 units, and then they wake him up at 2 or 3 a.m. and test this athlete, he will get busted if they test him twice with the 2 blood tests a couple hours apart. So what most athletes who are worried about this 2 to 3 a.m. test are going to do, they're probably going to have a GHRP on hand, like GHRP2, because what he can do after the first blood test, they pop him at 3 a.m., pull his blood, and they're going to test him 2 hours again later and compare the bleed down rate difference. He can run over to his bathroom. A lot of athletes keep those little portable battery powered refrigerators that fit in your pocket for things like their peptides. He can pen a small dose of the GHRP2, and it will impact the bleed down time so that there's at least a 50% chance now that he's going to pass the test about 50% of the time. And of course, the IGF-1 is clear by then, so he's okay. So his only real concerns are going to be testosterone being too high, or the T to E ratio being off, and the bleed down getting messed up on the HGH. So that will clear him for that. Now, what he will do then the rest of the day, because he's obviously his testosterone is suppressed, so he will need to respike his testosterone back up throughout training camp. So when he gets up in the morning, an athlete like this will probably hypothetically, again, this is a hypothetical athlete, what he might do to get his testosterone spiked back up to the 800 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter range is hit about 8 to 10 units of testosterone suspension, which will keep him stable for up to about 8 hours. It's going to spike and then bleed down. And then accordingly with it, he would probably use a corresponding amount of epitestosterone to keep the T to E ratio just about right in case they'd pull a blood test on him. Because again, he's pretty clear for urine on all of this. None of this stuff is going to show on urine, but blood tests are what he's really worried about, them coming and pulling directly out of a vein randomly at training camp. So probably first thing in the morning, he will probably do 8 to 10 milligrams of test suspension combined with 2 to 2.5 milligrams of epitestosterone, depending upon what he had, so that he can keep his T to E ratio at around 4 to 1, which is right at the acceptable limit for drug testing. And then if he's smart, what he may also do, because mechanogrowth factor is an amazing recovery agent, there is no drug test yet for mechanogrowth factor, he will probably first thing in the morning and then periodically through the training camp, if he keeps a little ice pack with him to keep MGF in it, he will use the mechanogrowth factor every hour or two at training camp or during every break between the hard training. Do that, and then very possibly a fast-acting insulin like Humalog, so that when he recarbs up after, when he have a little downtime, an hour break from training here and there for mealtime, a dose of Humalog to help speed up the glycogen replenishment, because again, he's got MGF and insulin to use throughout the day, because there is no drug test for either one of these, and they're both very powerful recovery and nutrient partitioning agents. So he could possibly do those up to 4 or 5 times throughout the day at the actual training camp with no risk of that affecting blood or urine. And then again, to keep his testosterone levels stable and the T to E ratio right, he'll do the test suspension and epitestosterone that I just mentioned, and then repeat the whole process again at night. And a protocol like this for urine, blood, things like that, for a college level athlete, this is how they would get through it. And you've got to remember, guys, that outside of the Olympics, college level sports actually have stricter testing than most pro sports. Football, baseball, basketball, even UFC at the professional level do not have quite as strict of testing as college athletes go through. And again, the kind of protocol I just described is generally what would be used by an athlete who knows he's going to get hit with random testing. He is being suspected. They're trying to single him out. He would go to a protocol like this in order to beat the stricter testing for someone they're trying to single out and really catch. And so again, it goes to show you that drug testing just really isn't that difficult to get around. It's an IQ test, and the people who are getting caught are being caught completely with their pants down, not realizing they're going to be tested at all for whatever reason, or they're just a complete idiot. It's nothing more than an IQ test. And so you have an example right there of what a hypothetical athlete might do, and what many athletes do in order to get around random off-season testing when they know they're going to be hit multiple times because they're suspected. So pretty straightforward. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.